owl and the faint whisper of the wind across the treetops. The party woke not to the gentle light of dawn, but to the pale silver of the moon. Their sleep, deep and unbroken, had stretched far beyond what they had intended. Instead of a few hours' rest to recover their strength, they had surrendered to a slumber that lasted an entire day. When Aelwyn first stirred, rubbing her eyes and scanning the campsite, she felt that something was wrong. The fire had collapsed into ash and embers, their bedrolls lay scattered, and her companions shifted wearily back to waking. Yet it was the absence that struck her most, the space where Taven should have been. His bedroll lay empty, his staff leaning against the pack he had left behind, but the tiefling himself was nowhere to be seen. Sariel, more superstitious than most, and always watchful for signs of ill omens, felt the pit of dread form almost instantly. His thoughts turned immediately to the obsidian shard. Taven had a history with it, a dangerous one. The tiefling's will had been tested before by the strange visions and compulsions the shard stirred. Sariel tore open his own pack in haste, certain he would find the stone safely hidden there, wrapped away to prevent temptation. Instead, his hands grasped nothing but cloth and rations. The shard was gone. The cleric looked up, face pale in the moonlight. "He's taken it," he muttered. "Selûne, forgive him, he's taken it." Rowan's scaly jaw tightened. "You're sure?" "Positive," Sariel said. "It's not here. He must have stolen it in the night." Aelwyn, already crouched low, touched the earth with her fingers, reading the disturbed patterns of the soil. She had always trusted the forest to tell her its stories, and tonight was no different. Faint impressions of boots, heavier than a goblin's, leading away from the camp and back toward the direction of the mountain hideout they had fought through the day before. She rose, expression grim. "Taven's trail leads back to the hideout." Rowan shouldered his shield, the motion sharp with anger. "Then we follow. If that shard has hold of him, he won't stand a chance alone." Sariel's silver eyes turned skyward, seeking the comfort of the Moon Maiden, but he found little solace. Something about the unnatural sleep, the missing shard, and the direction of Taven's path gnawed at him. It was as though fate itself was pulling them back into the jaws of the mountain. Without hesitation, the three gathered their things, doused what remained of the fire, and set out beneath the moonlight. The path to the hideout felt eerily familiar, though now under the cloak of night, the mountain loomed more menacingly. The gaping maw of its cavern entrance waited like the jaws of some slumbering beast. Inside, their steps echoed against stone. The memory of battle still lingered. Corpses of goblins lay where they had fallen, their weapons scattered, the stink of iron and death thick in the air. Nothing had been disturbed, not even the carrion feeders had dared to enter. It was as though time itself avoided this cursed place. But there was no sign of Taven, no sign of the shard. They pressed on, moving deeper into passages they had not yet explored. The first hallway ended in a crude wooden door. Rowan, taking point, pushed it open, his shield raised. Inside lay a kitchen, though long abandoned. Sacks of flour burst open, mold climbing their surfaces like rot spreading from within. Barrels of vegetables sagged in decay, their contents little more than foul-smelling mush. The air reeked of damp wood and spoiled food, and in the back, hunched over a half-rotted carcass of salted pork, was a giant badger. The creature froze, jaws dripping, eyes glimmering in the torchlight. A low rumble shook its chest. Rowan raised his sword, prepared for a fight, until the beast, with surprising suddenness, rolled onto its back and stretched its enormous paws outward. It blinked expectantly, tail twitching. Rowan blinked. "You've got to be kidding me." Aelwyn's lips twitched with amusement. He wants his belly rubbed. Against his better judgment, Rowan lowered his sword and gave the beast a tentative scratch along its stomach. The badger huffed with delight, kicking its hind leg like a content dog. Aelwyn, grinning now, shifted her form into that of a smaller badger. She padded forward and chirruped a greeting. The giant badger responded in kind, explaining in the simple, earnest tongue of beasts that his master had been a goblin who always treated him kindly, feeding him well. The goblin had not returned in many days, and the creature had grown lonely. When the conversation ended, the giant badger demanded more affection, nudging each of them for rubs before waddling back to his feast. The group left the chamber bemused, hearts momentarily lightened, before turning back to the darker task ahead. The next room was no crude den. When they opened the heavy door, they found a chamber surprisingly refined for goblin kind. A bed of woven furs, a desk strewn with parchment, maps and quills, all written in gobblish hand. The walls bore faint carvings, geometric symbols that looked unsettlingly close to dwarven runes. This was no ordinary goblin's lair. It had to belong to Ruxthid. As the group searched the room, Aluin stilled, ears twitching. She heard something faint, so faint it could almost be mistaken for the hiss of wind through cracks in the stone. But no, it was a voice. "Help me," it whispered. "Please, let me out." Her eyes swept the room until she found the source, a canopic jar on the desk. She beckoned the others. They leaned in close. The voice continued, muffled but urgent. "I am a dwarf. Once captain of this mine, imprisoned here when the horrors came. Free me, and I will aid you." Suspicion weighed heavy. Rowan narrowed his eyes. And why should we trust a voice in a jar? Sariel placed his hand upon the jar, murmuring a prayer. He felt no malice. Instead, there was a desperate sincerity. "I believe him." The jar was sealed by a lock, useless, as none among them knew how to pick it. Rowan, never one for patience, simply lifted the jar and smashed it upon the ground. It shattered in a cloud of smoke that twisted and coiled into the form of a Duergar. His hair was grey, his skin pale and cracked, his body scarred by the weight of years. Yet his eyes burned with gratitude. "I am Hjoldak," he said, voice rasping with age, "captain of this mine before it fell to the creatures with tentacled faces. They slew my kin, enslaved the rest, and bound me into that cursed vessel. You have freed me, and I owe you much." He pressed his palm against a wall, tapping stones in a sequence only he knew. With a grinding of hidden gears, a secret chamber opened, revealing a chest brimming with gold and valuables. "Take it," he urged, "payment for my freedom." But the companions sought more than treasure. They sought their friend. When Sariel pressed Hjoldak, the Duergar nodded grimly. "If he has gone deeper, you will need the lift. Come, I will guide you." Hjoldak led them through barracks of empty bunks, remarking how the chambers had changed in his absence. At last they reached a vast elevator platform at the far western end. Its crystal lay dark, its gears broken. Hjoldak frowned. It needs magic to power it, but the mechanism itself is damaged. Sariel raised his symbol, casting mending upon the broken gears. Aluin laid her hand upon the crystal, channeling druidic energy until it flared to life. The chains rattled, the wheels turned, and the platform began to descend. The group stepped aboard. Slowly the lift carried them downward into shadow. The air grew colder, the walls damp. Rowan's torch flickered. Each of them felt the weight of the earth pressing down as they descended to places untouched by sunlight. At the bottom, the platform ground to a halt before 3 tunnels. Hjoldak gestured. Straight ahead lay the gathering cavern. Above, the maintenance chamber. South, the crystal mines. They chose the cavern. The stench hit them first, putrid, overwhelming. Then came the sound, a wet sloshing, a dragging of limbs. And then it emerged, an otyr. Its body was a grotesque mass, 8 feet wide, standing on 3 elephantine legs. Its hide was rock-like, pitted with sores. 2 long tentacles writhed, spined and jagged, ending in thorned pads. A third, shorter stalk sprouted from its body, bearing eyes and a grotesque olfactory organ. Its maw gaped wide, fanged and drooling. But worse still, it glowed faintly with green corruption. The creature roared, charging. The group fled, hearts pounding, boots striking stone. Sariel was last, ducking as a tentacle lashed past his head, grazing his hair. They squeezed back into the tunnel, and the beast, too massive, could not follow. Its roars echoed after them, long into the darkness. Shaken, they chose the southern path. It opened into a vast geode-like chamber, its walls encrusted with sparkling crystals. A spiraling track wound downwards, gleaming in the crystal light, but Aluin's eyes sharpened, shapes slithering along the walls. Grix. They struck before Rowan or Hjoldak even noticed. Rowan fell with a strangled cry, unconscious within moments. Hjoldak too was bitten, though his flesh barely yielded. Aluin loosed arrows. Sariel flared with divine light, and Hjoldak erupted with unnatural power. From his hand sprang a blade of green light, striking twice to fell a Grick instantly. Then came a cloud of emerald mist that birthed shards of crystal, tearing into another. The fight ended in their victory, but Hjoldak collapsed, gasping, "These powers, not mine. Something inside me, trying to take control." They looked at him with unease, but pressed onward. Below, scaffolds overlooked Duergar miners hacking weakly at stone. 6 of them pale and lifeless, more dead than alive. Hjoldak approached and returned with grim news. They were reanimated shells. One claimed to have seen Tavin, but demanded barter. The companions surrendered treasure. In return, the miner pointed toward a distant doorway. They climbed and found a bridge spanning blue lava, heat rising in waves. At its end loomed an obsidian pyramid, carved with feasts and rituals, inlaid with silver. Twin doors glowed faintly green. Hjoldak insisted he could open it. Despite their protests, he pressed his hands to the stone. His eyes flared green, the doors groaned open, before he was hurled backward. On the bridge, he begged them, "Throw me into the lava. It's inside me, taking me." They hesitated, but when he raised his hand and hurled a green cloud at Sariel, Rowan made the choice. He seized Hjoldak and hurled him into the molten blue below. His scream echoed, then was gone. The doors opened. Within lay a circular platform. They activated its crystal, and slowly it descended. Hours seemed to pass before it reached the bottom. The sanctum was vast, carved of obsidian. 2 waterfalls of blue lava cascaded down, light flickering across the vaulted chamber. At the far end stood a statue of a dwarven woman, face cracked but smiling faintly still. A voice cackled, cruel and triumphant.
"I and your friend have been waiting for you. You are what Raxted desires."
From the shadows stepped a goblin unlike any they had seen. Tall, lank, with an obsidian shard embedded in his skull, glowing with psionic power. And bound to a stone column was Tavin. His crimson skin shone faintly in the lava's light. He lifted his head to meet their eyes, shame etched across his face. "Sorry, guys.